Hi, everyone. Welcome to our One World Energy Encounter with the Zohar. We are at verse 80 of volume 15, Tazria. So this week's portion is Tazria, and we're at verse 80. Before we get, Roshan, do you want to read English first today? Can you hear me?
Oh, wait, asking me.
Yes. Do you want to read English first today?
Yeah, sure. We'll just start.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. So
Okay.
let's invite in
I just need to get up for 1 second. So you talk.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, go ahead. So let's invite the Kabbalistic lineage for assistance of the Rav and Karen and Michael, Rav Shlag, Rav Brandwein, the Ariya Kodesh, the Ramchal, Rabbi Tarfon, Rav Avner Zulai, Rav Menachem Mendel Tepsk, Rav Kolona Mishapira Pia Setzna, the Baal Shem Tov, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, and all the students, Rav Mordechai Chernobyl, one soul with Yosef Tzaddik, Joseph the Righteous in Shechem. As we connect to these verses of the Zohar, let's have in mind that we're not reading. It's not a story. It's not literature. We are connecting through these verses and through these letters to the flawless universe, to the upper realm. And through that connection, from the flawless universe, the level of Binah, the world to come, we are channeling the energy of healing for everyone we know needs healing, energy of assistance to those souls that are transitioning, also the energy to end the war in Israel and the safe return of all the hostages and protection for all those innocents that are in harm's way. Also an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. And the energy of Abat Chinam, unconditional love, treating everyone in the world with human decency, removal of all chaos and negativity in our world, protection from evil eye and evil speech. Okay. Verse 80, the name of this article is, and breathe into his nostrils the breath of life. That comes directly from the creation story, as we'll see. And the question is, what does that have to do with this week's portion and the energy of this week? Verse 80, Tu petach b'rei achara ve'amar v'yitzer Hashem Elokim et Adam afar min ha'adama v'gomer v'yitzer Hashem Elokim b'trei yodin b'trei yitzrin yetzer tov v'yetzer ra chad l'kabel maya v'chad l'kabel esha Hashem Elokim Shem Maleh et Adam Khalil Dachar v'nukba afar min ha'adama da'afra da'ara kadisha u'mitaman itbere b'hu atar devei makdasha. So before Roshan reads the English, just a couple of things to consider because of the way our technology is working. If you want to ask a question, just raise your hand and Ron will call you out for that. Or just speak up. Okay, Roshan, verse 80.
His other son opened the discussion with the verse.
Okay, so we're coming into the middle of a story. His other son. We don't know what the other one said. This is the other son. Not necessarily relevant, other than we're in the middle of some kind of study session that's taking place. And the thing to consider is that when we are reading Zohar and there are sages who are studying, first of all, on the one hand, we're kind of studying with them. So there's this like Back to the Future effect where this is taking place now, even though it originally took place in the past. So we're connecting to that energy, the energy that they revealed in that original discussion. We are again, it's like a boomerang effect. Boomerang? I don't know. Maybe it's more of an analogy of you put a note in a bottle and you toss it out in the ocean. So we are connecting to the energy that was revealed a couple thousand years ago. And that's the thing to remember when we're studying the Zohar. It isn't about just seeing and learning interesting things. I mean, that comes with it. It's about tapping into the energy that was revealed originally and the energy that was revealed by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And that is the energy of immortality. And that is the energy of Messiah consciousness. In addition to everything else that we are connecting to, that's a big part of our consciousness. Okay. And what's the verse? Go ahead.
Okay. And Hashem Elokim formed man of dust of the ground. And Hashem Elokim formed Hebrew Vayitzer is spelled
Yes,
with two
vayitzer.
Y's.
So the thing is that the word for formed is vayitzer. Hang on a second. Yeah, it's vayitzer. And you can see it actually in the text. It's the sixth word on line 1. I mean, it shows up again, but it's the sixth word. That is vayitzer. And there's something unusual about that word. Go ahead.
Okay. Right. Vayitzer is spelled with two Yuds to indicate man was born with two inclinations, the good inclination and the evil inclination.
Okay, so as we know, there isn't as much as a single extra letter in the Torah, in the 5 books of Moses. There's not as much as one single. So every single thing that's there, from the letters to the spaces to the dots to the oversized font letters to the undersized font letters, none of that is random. It's not random. It's all by design. So when you see a word that doesn't need 2 yuds, the letter yud is the 10th letter in the alphabet, in the Hebrew Aramaic alphabet. You see an extra yud in the word. It's silent actually. When you read the word, it's vayitzer, but there's 2 yuds. So the question is, why is there 2 yuds? And what the Zohar is telling us is that there are 2 yuds because to indicate in the word formed, to indicate that we were formed with 2 desires or inclinations, one that's good and one that's evil. Now, the whole good and evil thing sound like any other good and evil thing you ever heard about? How about the tree of knowledge of good and evil? So the thing about
I haven't heard any of this that's following before.
what's that?
I said I haven't heard about the water and the fire having to
No,
do
well, we're
with.
gonna get to it in a second. No, I haven't either. But the thing is, the first thing I just want to point out is that this idea of good and evil, it goes back to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Remember, back in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve they're living in the flawless universe. There's no need for health insurance because there's no illness. There's no need for life insurance. Nobody dies. You have immortality. You don't have to work the field. The food is there. It's the flawless universe. It's perfect. Except there's a snake, which we know about, and there's a tree called the tree of knowledge of good and evil. With there weren't a lot of rules for Adam and Eve. There was one rule: don't eat from the tree of good and evil. It's hadat. It gets referred to as the tree of knowledge, but it's not the tree of knowledge. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's hadat tov v'ra. That's what it says in the Torah. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And basically what happened was they ate from the apple. And the thing the snake said to them, to get Eve to eat the apple, he said, I know that God said you would die if you ate it, but look, I'm eating the apple and I'm here. I haven't passed. So, and he's like, the reason why the creator doesn't want you to eat from the tree is because you're going to have this knowledge. Your eyes will be opened. You'll be like God. And that's what the creator doesn't want. And so this insidious argument that the snake gives, and there's a lot more to that story, which we're not going to get into exactly what the relationship between Eve and the snake was, but what happens is she eats of the apple, and then she gets Adam to eat of the apple, and what do we have now? And they get thrown out of the Garden of Eden. And what do we have now? Look around. We have good and evil. I can't tell the difference between anything. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. That's right. That's what we created. That's the world that we created by eating the apple. We live in a world we can't tell the difference between right and wrong. I think it's right, but I don't know. It could be wrong. I think that's wrong, but I know it could be right. Oh, you're definitely wrong. Oh no, you're definitely. This is the world we live in. It almost seems like it's actually gotten worse. So, by the way, there is also a different tree there, the tree of life. So, what we have is a choice of consciousness. We can stick with the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is the way we were created. That's what the two yuds are telling us. Or we can rise above that and stick to the tree of life. And that's what the study of Kabbalah is all about. We want to be connected to the tree of life. We want to be connected to the deeper reality. And so part of the reason why we study Zohar is to assist us in doing that. Okay. So those are the two. Now, the other thing is that it says good and evil, but I think what our teachers say, a better way of looking at that is it's the difference between desire to receive for the self. That's what we're calling evil. It's negative, meaning we're receiving. We're just part of a negative pole, that's all. Or the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. You still have a desire. That's not the issue. We have desire. That's not changing. The question is, what are we doing with that desire? Our nature is to take care of ourselves. Our nature is to receive for ourselves. We're the only species that can rise above that and actually set up a charitable foundation, or give to the our community, give back to our community, and participate in community work and help those who are needy. We're the only species that can do that. When we do that, and we don't have agenda, that's the good inclination. That's the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. So this is like as basic as it gets. It's like understanding like how we're wired. And how did we get that wiring? It's in the word Vayetzer. There's two yuds, and it's telling us there's a good inclination and evil inclination. So the first takeaway for us in all this is understand how we're wired. Because if we want more blessings in our life, we need to be more like the Creator. The Creator doesn't have a desire to receive itself. The Creator only has a desire to share. Because the Creator doesn't need anything. The Creator is constantly sharing. Everything we experience is coming from the Creator. And so if we want to align ourselves with these blessings that the Creator wants to shower upon us 24/7, we need to be more like the Creator. And to be more like the Creator, we need to be beings of sharing. And being a being of sharing is tapping into our desire to receive for the sake of sharing, that good inclination. But those two are in conflict. And because our souls in this world need a body to show up, that body is wired with a desire to receive for the self. So that it's like it is an uphill battle. Any questions about that? Okay, let's continue. Roshan.
One, the good inclination corresponds to water, and one, the evil inclination corresponds to fire.
What do you think about that? By the way, that's not in the Zohar. That is, hang on a second. It might be in the Aramaic. It is. So in the third line, you see Chad lekavel Maya. Maya is Aramaic for water. The Chad lekavel Esha. Esha is from the Hebrew word Esh, which is fire. So one is a inclination for water, and one is inclination. What does that mean?
Well, water always has to do with life, surely.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. The other thing about water is right column, which is chesed, which is mercy, which is the desire to share. Vura, judgment, is red, is fire. So just so you know, this isn't random. It's like it's but the Zohar is telling us is energetically, when I've desired to receive for the sake of sharing, I'm more tapped into chesed, into mercy. And when I'm more tapped into gevurah, it's like the fire. It's less merciful. It's more desire to receive itself. Just think about someone who gets angry. Are they getting angry? Well, generally speaking, they get angry because there's not enough charity going out? No. They're getting angry because things aren't going the way they want them to go. It's about me. It's desire to receive the self. So these are the poles that are out there. And as we also know from prior studies, the channel for right column, chesed, mercy, water, is Abraham, who was all about mercy, all about chesed. And the channel for left column, gvura, judgment, fire, is Abraham's son Isaac. And Isaac leads a life. First of all, he is in conflict with, he does have conflict. It's not like he doesn't have conflict. He's in conflict with his brother Ishmael. But that aside, that's early on in the life. But that aside, Isaac has to lead a life where he is keeping his fire in check, in balance. And so that channel for us has the potential to spin out of control and does spin out of control in many ways. But to a great degree, because of Isaac, when we're connecting to Isaac, we are balancing that desire to receive for the sake of sharing, that very judgmental side of us, that fiery side to us. But we have both, clearly, as the paragraph points out. We are wired with both capacities, with both desires. And that's where our free will comes in. It's like, which button are we going to push? The good inclination or the evil inclination? The desire to receive for the self, or the desire to receive for the sake of sharing? Okay, let's continue.
Hashem Elohim is a full name, quote, the man, unquote, includes of male and female, since the et Hebrew alludes to the female.
Okay, so the first thing that the Zohar is telling us is in the verse in Genesis, Vayitzer Hashem Elohim, it looks like there's an extra word there. The word God shows up 2 times. In the English, it says in English, and this is in the third line in the English, and Hashem Elohim formed Vayetzer, formed. So why are both names needed? The Zohar is pointing out Hashem Elohim is a full name. So the Yud Kei Vav Kei, which we're saying is Hashem, is an upper realm name, and Elohim is a name which is more mercy oriented, and Elohim is a word that's used, that we actually say, is more judgment oriented. So you see that the full energy of both mercy and judgment are injected into us, and that's the 2 yuds, and that's the 2 separate inclinations. As the Zohar continues, that complete man includes male and female, because how do we know that that's what's going on here? Hang on. Because in the first line, if you look at the first line in the Aramaic, in the middle of the line, it says Ve'amar, V'yitzer Hashem Elohim et Hadam. So Adam, you would think it's just Adam. How do we know it applies to male and female? So the Zohar is telling us that because the word et is there, and et really doesn't have a meaning. It's not even translatable, I don't think. But what it does represent is Aleph and Taf, the first letter and the last letter of the 22-letter Aramaic alphabet. So it's holy not Holy, but Wholy. It is encompassing everything. It is, and so it's et hadam is an indication of male and female because it's encompassing both halves of the soul. So, okay, continue.
Dust of the ground is the dust of the Holy Land, whence it was created. It is the place of the temple.
So not any dust we were created with. It looks like we were created with dust specifically from the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. This is the whole source. Well, there's more than one, but for man of dust, it's like we come from dust and we return from dust. That's the source for that. We literally are formed of dust, which doesn't sound like a lot because the truth is that it's not. We're like mostly energy. Dust is something that's indicative of something less than energy. Dust is like some kind of purposeless substance. But we're certainly not purposeless. We're purposeful. But it was the injection of that light into the dust through which man is formed. So this brings up an important point. It is the place of the temple. So it'd be misreading it to think that the dust of the Holy Land, where the temple was, is holy because the temple was built there, or both temples were built there. So we have a line. It's like Jerusalem is not holy because the temple was built there. The temple was built there because Jerusalem is holy. And so what this is just a reminder of for us, and an important takeaway is that in our realm where we see all this chaos and conflict and fragmentation and a lack of cohesiveness and a lack of desire to receive for the sake of sharing, and a concept of like what's in it for me, like this runs contrary to exactly our foundation. It's always about the internal energy. The temple is built up because the internal energy of Jerusalem is holy. I don't care how we show up physically. We have a spark of the Creator is our internal energy. And so another really important takeaway here is like, we want to have our consciousness focus in every situation we come into in trying to read the energy and trying to sense the energy and not be drawn in by physicality, because physicality represents desire to deceive itself. Yeah, you're just reminding us that the term "et" is there to I can't see I can't see the chat. Hang on a second. There it is. Et, as we saw it, is a term used to indicate a direct object. Yes. Grammatically, that's why it shows up. So but for us, again, this is a reminder and assistance to us in keeping our consciousness in the right place, in keeping our consciousness to understand that there are two desires that we have, and there's no way out of it. We have two desires. We have the desire to receive the self, and we have the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. But that desire to receive for the sake of sharing is an elevated consciousness. Someone want to say something?
And then you notice the vowel that Ed uses is segal is a 3-column system.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you, Eric, for pointing that out. Yeah, so we're fortunate because this version of the Zohar we're reading has vowels on it. And if you see the word et, which in the first line of the Aramaic is the fourth line from the left, fourth word from the left, you see underneath the aleph are 3 dots, which is a segol, which is the 3-column system. So there's significance to everything, not only the letters, but also to the vowels themselves. So again, for us, it's like understanding the internal energy is very, very significant. I was with someone this morning who was telling me that you know, there's a commandment in this week's portion that we do circumcision on the 8th day. Well, what if the 8th day? What if a child is born on the Sabbath, and so their circumcision would be the following Saturday? And we know that there's restrictions on Saturday. I mean, do you do a Brit Milah on Saturday? The answer is you do. But the Mohel, the guy that does it, he has to break Shabbat to do the circumcision. How's that possible? And so it's a reminder about consciousness, that the consciousness that Mohel has to have is not about just the restrictions. It's about doing something that is assisting this child in the trajectory of what that child's life is potentially going to be spiritually. And so that's one of those rare examples of, like, even though we accept certain restrictions upon ourselves on Shabbat, that there are exceptions for that. Okay, let's continue. Verse 81. Vayipach be'apad nishmat chayim, da nishmata kadisha, de'it mashcha me'inun chayim dil'ela, vehi adam lenefesh chaya, adam it kalil benafsha kadisha, mechaya ila'a da pikat ar'a, dichtiv totzeh haaretz nefesh chaya, nefesh tahahi chaya ila'a. Portion.
And breathed into his nostrils the breath, Hebrew, neshama of life. This is the holy neshama that is drawn from the supernal life from Bina. And man
Okay,
became
so
a living.
So where do our souls come from? The holy neshama, this aspect of our soul, come from the level of Bina, the flawless universe. That's where souls, I want to say originate, but that's what we're being told. That souls originate from the level of Bina. And let's continue. Let's see the significance of that.
Okay. And man became a living nefesh, since a man includes a holy nefesh from the supernal living creature, which is Bina, that produced the earth, Malchut, as written, let the earth bring forth living creatures. The nefesh of that supernal living creature, Bina.
Okay, so what we see here is that, look, if you're not really thinking about it, you can be experiencing life without any idea of soul. Maybe every so often you have like a cool spiritual experience. So potentially you could experience life as a physical being that has spiritual experiences. I mean, it's not unreasonable. Just seem at times to be that's what's going on. But what this is coming to tell us is exactly the opposite. We're not here as physical beings having a spiritual experience. We are here as spiritual beings having a physical experience. And it's important to remember that it's like, if you want to be here, you need a bodysuit. You need physicality. That's the vessel. Nothing manifests in our physical realm without a vessel. Everything's got a covering. Everything has a vessel. From humans to everything else we encounter. That's not to say that that's all of reality. It's not, it's 1%. But the other 99% isn't necessarily manifesting because there isn't the vessel for it. But we, on the other hand, have consciousness. So we have the choice of approaching our life as spiritual beings having a physical experience. And that's what this is coming to tell us. And that's actually what our takeaway from this should be. To remind yourself constantly, I know that I'm experiencing physicality, but ultimately I'm a spiritual being that's experiencing physicality. And the other thing is that as a spiritual being experiencing physicality, we have the ability to rise above physicality. And we have many tools in which to do that. Not the least of this is, of course, the Zohar that assists us with that. Okay, let's take another verse, 82. Tachase b'chol zimna d'hai nishmata kadisha itdabkat be bevarnash rechimahu d'mare kama nuturin natrin le mikol citrin reshimahu l'tab le'ela v'tata ushkrinta kadisha sharia aloy.
Come and see, as long as that holy soul cleaves to man, he is beloved of his master. He is well kept from every direction. He is marked for the good above and below, and the holy Shekhinah rests on him.
Okay, so here we are, spiritual beings having a physical experience. There's a very important little, pro tip over here. As long as that soul cleaves to man, he's beloved as long as we have a consciousness that we are soul, that we are actually a spark from the Creator. What does it mean that he is beloved of his master? Does that mean that the Creator is playing favorites? No. It means that there's a similarity of form. So this is a reminder of our goal is to have dveikut, cleaving, oneness with the Creator. And how do we do that? By remembering that we're a piece of the Creator. By really understanding what and where we are foundationally. So even though in paragraph 80, the first one we read, we have this evil inclination, ultimately, we have the consciousness to overcome that. And we have the consciousness to create oneness with the Creator. And when we do, we are, as the Zohar says, beloved of this master. And you can look at it as a very simple, the Creator loves us, which, okay, clearly. But in a much deeper way, it's an expression of when we show up with oneness with the Creator. And how do we show up with oneness? By seeing the traits of the Creator and by emulating those traits. And what's that primary trait? A being of sharing. So the more we are like God, the more we are liked by God. And it's not a matter of playing favorite. That's up to us. Creator loves us no matter what. The question is are we aligned with the light of the Creator? So if we can achieve that, here's the list of extra perks. We are well kept from every direction, meaning there's energy of protection. We're marked for good above and below. So again, it's we're protected from negativity. And not only that, we are aligned with this energy of goodness. And ultimately, the Shekhinah, this female, supportive, protective energy of the Creator is with us, literally rests on us. So the more we are connected to soul, the more this spiritual realm is there with energy of protection for us, energy assistance and energy of protection. I think we have time for one more. Verse 83. Uvzimna deihu aste archoi, shkhinta is talakat mine, v'nishmata kadisha la it dvakat be, umisuta dechivya bisha takifa, itar rucha chad, Deshat ve'azil be'alma. Tela shaya ela be'atar di kucha ila'a istalak mitaman. Uchodein ista'av barnash. Bit begim bib sare. Be'chezo de anpoi be'chola.
Come and see, as long as that holy soul cleaves
Wait a
to
second.
man, he is beloved with
Wait a second.
master.
That's the one we did. That's the one we were
right.
just read. This 82, 83. When he
We're on
deviates.
83, sorry.
Yes,
When
it's
he
okay.
deviates in his ways, the Shekinah is gone from him, and the holy neshama does not cleave to him.
Okay,
And
so on the other hand, when we are misaligned, when we are letting the desire to receive for the self alone, when we're letting that desire, that evil inclination dominate, we don't have the protection of the neshama. We're on our own. Go ahead.
From the side of the harsh serpent, a spirit is aroused that roams and walks the world, which rests only on a place supernal holiness has departed from.
Okay, so, and yeah, again, I'm sorry, and finish that. And it dwells
on that man.
Okay, great. So here we go. There's the snake again. So the snake is this energy of negativity, of desire to receive for the self. If we're experiencing this desire to receive for the self, it's because we've disconnected from the light. And when we disconnect from light, we no longer have this energy of protection and this energy of goodness that is following us, and the energy of the Shekhinah, which is there and protecting us. Instead, we get the snake. And what happens is we create a vessel for the other side. When we disconnect from the light, as the Zohar says, which rests only on a place of supernal holiness has departed. How did the supernal holiness depart? How did that happen? It's the consciousness. We don't have the right consciousness. And that's why everything comes down to consciousness. Keep going. That man.
Right. Right. That man is then defiled that is blemished in his flesh, in everything, and in his consonants.
Okay, so we have, like, in the opening paragraph, we have this distinction between the two inclinations that we have. And we're wired that way. And it goes back to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and also the tree of life. And we have a choice as to which tree we're going to align ourselves with. When we're aligned with the light of the Creator, when we're connected to the tree of life, we have energy of protection, we have goodness following us, we have the Shekhinah protecting us and assisting us. When we decide, you know what, I'm going to do it alone, I can do this, this is me, we create an opening for the primordial snake, the desire to receive of the self alone. And along with that comes negativity and chaos. So really, this is a story of our consciousness and the free will that we have to choose between them. The problem is that when we're going to get triggered and we're going to think about, our thoughts are going to turn to ourselves, and it's a test, and we need to remind ourselves after we're triggered or before if we can stop ourselves early enough, that it's all coming from the light. It's assisting us. And so when chaos visits us, if we can remind ourselves it's coming from the light, we maintain an elevated consciousness. We maintain our connection to the light and to the Shekhinah, and keep ourselves on a very positive, loving, world-changing consciousness where we have Devekut, we have oneness with the Creator, and the blessings that flow from that. Okay, everybody, we're out of time. Love you all. Shabbat shalom. Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.